So the landlord sees how great that my dad is doing. And he goes, I cut you a really good break on that rent, but I see how much money you're making. When it comes time for us to talk options, I'm going to be jacking your rent way up. You imagine a landlord saying that to a tenant?
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. But what that did was it was a trigger for my father and got him thinking. He realized, he said, he thought about two things. First, I'm at my business, which is now very valuable, is at the is can be held hostage by that predatory landlord. I can't have that.
Welcome, everyone, to the Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, Caleb David. And today we are talking about franchising, commercial real estate, and finance. Our guest today is Joe Tagliente. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and investor with over 25 years of experience in franchising, commercial real estate, and finance. Starting with his family's Burger King franchises, Joe transitioned into real estate investment and sale-leaseback strategies, helping franchise owners unlock capital and scale. Based in Massachusetts, his insights are highly relevant to the Northeast and Metro New York markets, where retail and hospitality continue to evolve. His expertise bridges franchising, private credit, and property investment, perfectly aligned with the storytelling focus of Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the show, Joe. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Caleb.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing your story. Let's maybe get start with your family's franchise, Burger King franchise, and
Sure.
let's start there, and then we've got lots to cover today.
Sure. My story is the second part of our family story. So our family business started in 1969. Pardon me, when my dad bought his first Burger King franchise and then opened it in Somerville, Massachusetts. My dad was a really interesting guy. He was the son of Italian immigrants who came to the United States through Ellis Island in the early 20th century. They were very poor people, didn't have the ability to read or write. And he grew up in the small town of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is this cute, nice mill town in the Berkshire Mountains. And he grew up during the Depression. He was born in the early 20s, 1920s.
Wow.
And he grew up during the Depression, and he always had to learn how to make putting tools in his tool bag, if you will. And he grew up, went through fighting in the Korean War. And then after the Korean War, he finished his service in the Navy and then matriculated to the Harvard Business School. And it was the 1950s and the GI Bill of Rights, and they were trying to help all these guys who were coming home from the war and from overseas and get them trained to occupy corporate positions. So he went to Harvard Business School, graduated with his MBA, and for about good 10 or 15 years, he was working for various corporations around the United States. And he was not really loving it. He was an entrepreneur at heart. And so when you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to be told what to do. You don't fit into corporate culture. You want to make your own corporate culture. You're a bit of a pain in the ass. But I can say that as a loving son. And then when he got to be, and then so when he got to be, then he met my mom, went back to Italy, met my mom, started a family. He was 43 when I was born. So in the 60s, that was late to be starting a family. And then my sister came along, and then my brother, by the time my brother came along, he was pushing 50 years old. When he got to be about 46, 45, 46 years old, he had an epiphany. He realized something. He said to himself, he said, I, this job that I have, at some point in time, these guys who I'm working for are going to realize that they can probably fill my job with somebody half my age and pay them half my salary. And I'm going to be out of a job and I'm going to have this family to support. I'm going to be pretty much out of luck. And so I need to do something now. So he at that point started to work on finding a business idea. And He didn't know where to start, even though he had a Harvard MBA. How did he not know where
Yeah.
to start? He didn't. It was the 1960s. We didn't have Google. We didn't have the things that you can use now, but he used his own resources. The first thing he did is he connected with a gentleman who was a member of SCORE, which is the Senior Corps of Retired Executives, this really nice man, and who sat down with him for a few weeks. They looked at a lot of different things. And then the man never said to him, he says, "Hey, did you ever think about maybe a franchise?" And my father was like, "I have been looking at franchises. What are you thinking?" And the fellow said to him, he said, "You know something? There's this professor up in Boston College. We were living in Hartford at the time because he was working for Travelers.
Okay.
We're in Boston now. But the gentleman from SCORE said, there's this professor and he works at Boston College. He's a retired franchise attorney and he's teaching franchising there. And this guy knows everything about franchising. You should go see that guy. I'll call him and make an appointment for you."
Yeah.
So my father drove up to Boston College, sat down with the professor, and the professor chatted with him for about an hour or so and said, "You know what? I think you'd be great for McDonald's. That's a place where you ought to go. So I'm going to call Ray Kroc
Yeah.
and put you in touch with him."
Wow.
So before I know it, my father's on the phone with Ray Kroc, and they talked for about an hour. And Ray was as jovial and engaging as everyone ever said he was. He was a consummate salesman. And after an hour, he said, "Joe, we'd love to have you. Are you kidding me? A Navy veteran, football player, Harvard Business School guy. We'd love to have you." And here's a problem though. We got a 3-year backlog on franchisees waiting for their first store. Our real estate department can't keep up with them. So it's going to be about 3 years before we can get you in a store. Can you wait 3 years? Can you keep it going at Travelers for 3 years? And my father said to him, "Mr. Kroc, I'm 46. I don't want to be 50 years old flipping hamburgers. I've got to get started now." They parted ways and very politely, and Ray said to him, "If you change your mind, let me know." Went back to the professor and he told him what had happened with Kroc, and he said, "All right, there's this other group that I know of, and they're really good too. Let me give them a call." So the following day, the professor calls my dad and he says, "Jim and Dave," so it's Jim McLemore and Dave Edgerton, the two founders of Burger King. He says, "They want to talk to you. So here's their phone number. Give them a call. They're waiting for you." So my father calls them and has a conference call with these guys. Same response, "Joe, we'd love to have you, and we heard about what happened with McDonald's. Here's the story, okay? We've got 2 Burger Kings we're building right now. There were going to be corporate stores, but you know something? If you like one of them, you can have one of them, and we'll get you started with training. We'll get you going." And my dad's like, "That's fantastic. Where are they?" One's in Seneca Falls, New York, and the other's in this town just outside of Boston called Somerville, Mass. So we drove up to Seneca Falls. Have you ever been there,
I
Caleb?
haven't.
It's beautiful. It's in like the central part of New York in the Finger Lakes region, and Seneca Falls is famous because it was it was not the actual backdrop for the movie It's a Wonderful Life, but It's a Wonderful Life that was the inspired backdrop. So they're like, "We want this place to look like Seneca Falls."
Uh,
And anyways, we drove up there. My father found the site, and it was under construction, or it hadn't even broken ground yet. And he did not like the location. He said it was on a busy road, but was in a hole. And what I was worried about is that once it was up and running, motorists would drive by. They'd be looking at the roof of the Burger King, not into the restaurant. And when we were all together. My mom said to him, "I don't like it. It's in a hole." So my father, right then and there, he goes to a phone booth. I don't know if you know what a phone booth is, but
Listen, I remember.
so I remember phone booths. But anyways, my father pumps a bunch of dimes into the telephone booth, and he calls McLemore and Edgerton, and he tells them, he goes, "I'll take the Somerville Burger King. I'll take that one, sight unseen." And the reason why he did that is because they had told him, "We have a bunch of other franchisees who are interested in these Burger Kings. So you pick one, we'll give the other guy the other one." So he said, I better nail that one down. Otherwise I might lose it." So sight unseen, he picked it. But the wonderful thing is, the following day, we spent the night in Seneca Falls, and then the following day, hopped in the car. We drove to Somerville, and it was a beautiful site, and it still is. 3/4 of an acre on a busy street, and it was on a corner of 2 streets. One street was the main drag to get from Somerville into Boston and Cambridge, so tons of traffic. There was a bus line, still there's a bus line to this day, has a bus stop right in front of it. Across the street was a shopping center with a busy department store. So it was perfect. So he bought the Burger King and did his training. We moved from Hartford up to Boston. And that's how we launched our business. And then and he worked his ass off that for about 6 months in that first Burger King. And I remember talking to him about it. He said, the reason why I did that is because I wanted to learn the business from the ground up. I wanted to know it ice cold. And he says, because it's a nickel dime business. And if you don't know where the nickels and dimes are, you're going to lose the dollars. So you got to really get in there and know that business. And I preach that to people today. Because I come in, every once in a while, I get a call from some private equity guy. Joe, I want to buy like 50 Burger Kings and then hire a guy and then he can do it. And then I'm like, okay, if you'd like to lose $50 million, go ahead with that plan. I'm sure it'll go great. I'm like, the best thing for you, private equity guy, is get your ass into a kitchen, start flipping burgers, and serving customers, sweat your ass off of the drive-through for a couple of weeks and know the business, then bring that guy in. Okay, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So anyways, so he eventually brought some management people. A couple of years later, he opened up his second Burger King. Now he opened it on 181 Tremont Street in Boston, which was right across the street from the Boston Common, and which is Boston's version of the Central Park, like New York Central Park. And it was also across the street from a busy subway station. So tons of people coming in every day. You got the government, and you could see the State House from the front door, literally thousands of people walking by the place. Gets the Burger King open and running. And this is so he opened the first one in May 10th, 1970. That was Somerville. 3 years later, he opened the second one. The second one was a just absolute blockbuster. Did $1 million in sales, in annual sales, and it was the first Burger King to break the $1 million sales mark. And so it was a record breaker. It was huge. Now, here's what happened though. So this is where the seeds to the real estate tree get planted.
Yeah.
So the landlord sees how great that my dad is doing. And he goes, I cut you a really good break on that rent, but I see how much money you're making. When it comes time for us to talk options, I'm going to be jacking your rent way up. You imagine a landlord saying that to a tenant?
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. But what that did was it was a trigger for my father, and it got him thinking. He realized, he said, he thought about two things. First, I'm at my business, which is now very valuable, can be held hostage by that predatory landlord. I can't have that.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And the second thing is this: he had this realization. He said, I'm making a lot of money selling hamburgers and French fries, but my landlord's making a lot of money collecting my rent, and he's sitting on his ass doing it. I want me a little bit more of that. Okay. That's the job that I want. So from that point on, my father made a vow to himself and then built that as a sort of operational ethos into our company, that we do not operate unless we own the property. Okay. And from then on, that was it. Just every time he wanted to build a Burger King or we built anything, it was always on real estate that we owned. And it took him 5.5 years before he built his third Burger King, because he took a lot of time to find the site where he was going to make that purchase. Okay. And the things that slowed him down was finding the right location. And then he would find a location. And then this happened to him 3 or 4 times. He would find a location he liked. Then he'd go through the process of getting entitlements and permits. And I don't know if you know what Massachusetts is like. Getting entitlements for a fast food restaurant, you'd have an easier time breaking into a safe with your forehead. Okay. So bang your head against the safe, you're going to open the door. It's so difficult here. And I don't know if it's the Northeast or whatever it is, because like I've done business in New Jersey and New York City, and I'm just like, oh my God, what is the matter with these people? They just want to fight everything.
Yeah.
That slowed him down. But 5.5 years later, in 1979, he finally opened his third Burger King in Milford, Massachusetts. And after that, he went on a roll. Over the course of the next 4 years, he built 5 additional restaurants. Bing, bing, bing. He went really fast. And then we got up to 10. He built his chain up to 10 Burger Kings. Then I'd always been working with him as a kid. Loved working in the Burger Kings, sweeping floors, taking out trash, making French fries, you name it. I loved it. And it was hot. It was very hot, challenging, hard work, but it was great. And you're in the esprit de corps of the team during a busy lunch hour, and you're feeling that pressure, and then it's done. Everyone's high-fiving each other. Great job. And it was nice. It was nice. So then I became a franchisee. I get out of college. I went to the Cornell Hotel School. I get out of there. I go into I I I become a franchisee myself. And I bought one Burger King out of foreclosure, which was owned by a bank, and I bought that and then built three others. So we got up to 14 Burger Kings.
Wow.
But the cool thing that started happening was, so when my father, that third Burger King, where he made his first purchase of real estate, he bought 3.5 acres of property in this town, Milford, Massachusetts, right off of Interstate 495. Took half the property, built the Burger King. The other half sat there, lay fallow, as they say in real estate. And we would always talk about what we could do with it. So as I was heading off to Cornell, my father said to me, he goes, "Hey, while you're up there, you're going to be studying hotel administration. Start talking to some of your professors about that land. Maybe we can build a hotel there." And I said, "All right, Dad, maybe a hotel it is." I'm there 10 minutes, and my professor's, "Yeah, you can build a hotel there." And so my dad and I just started going through this process of trying to figure out what kind of a hotel we were going to build there. And when I was, the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, when you go to the hotel school, they require you every summer, you have to work in the industry. So if you have no experience, one year you got to work in restaurants, another year you got to work in hotels, another year you work in country clubs, whatever it is. So you got to put in a lot of hours every summer. So I had tons of restaurant work experience. So like, okay, no more restaurants for you. You got to start working in hotels. So I was working at the front desk of the Koala Inn in Framingham, Massachusetts, on Route 9. And I know this sounds like a Mecca resort. So it was this great little property. The owner of it was this gentleman named Robert Agnello, and he had two daughters who were friends of mine and also students at the Cornell Hotel School, and they got me the job. And he said, "I need a job for this." Guys doing for rooms tonight? We're sold out, Joe. Oh, okay, we've got 10 rooms left over. So if somebody comes to you and you need a walk-up, send them over to us. And that's how hotels communicated. And this is 1985, 86, right about there. And that's how you tracked how bad other hotels' room occupancy is. There was one hotel every night sold out. And if everybody else was dead, they were sold out.
No.
And that was She's like, "Sure, shoot." I go, "You guys are sold out every night. What's going on over there?" I'm a student at Cornell. I'm trying to learn this. The guy I was chatting with happened to be the general manager of the hotel who was filling in for a sick front desk clerk. And he was the nicest guy. And we talked for a good half hour. And he said, "Joe, you know something? Do you live in the area?" I said, "Yeah, I live over in Weston." He said, "Hey, come on over. I'll come by if you want, come by tomorrow. I'll show you the hotel. I'll take you on a tour. I'll show you how we do everything." I said, "Can I bring my dad?" He goes, "Bring your dad." So I get home that night. I tell my father a conversation, and my dad's, "Oh, great, let's go over visits." We drive over, and he shows us. So a Red Roof Inn, beautiful location, clean but basic rooms, a bed, a shower, a key. You get in, not even indoor corridors. Room rates dialed right in. They knew exactly if we have it priced at this, we're going to sell out. And very basic. My dad and I looked at that and we said, "Oh, I don't know if we want to be Red Roof Inn franchisees, we want to maybe have something a little bit. Red Roof Inn is a nice brand, but something a little bit more upscale
Mm.
because we think we've got a nice piece of property there in a nice location. We think we can carve out a niche. So, anyways, we went out. Since we're comfortable with the franchise model, being Burger King franchisees, we looked at Comfort Inns. We looked at Days Inns. We looked at Courtyard by Marriott was just starting to come out. So Hampton Inns. We were looking at all the brands. Hampton Inn hadn't even come out yet, but they were like trying to pitch us, and they haven't even opened yet. My dad and I, after going through all this due diligence, we said to ourselves, I think he came up with the idea. He said, "What do you think about us if we build our own building, we put our own name on it, and we see how it goes? If it doesn't work out, we can always convert and buy a flag."
Yeah.
He goes, "But if it goes great, then we'll just hang in there. We don't have to pay them the 6% of the franchise fee. We can build our own brand." Sounds great, Dad. So we built it. We went ahead and we built the hotel, and then we opened it June 12th, 1989. Now, May to June 1989 was a big moments of my life. So May 28th, 1989, I graduate from Cornell. June 12th, 1989, I opened my first hotel with my dad. And June 24th, 1989, I married my wife, Romy. So I said, I had a busy month.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a great experience because when I was at Cornell, I was here I am studying hotel management. I'm studying hotel development, how to finance a hotel, how to operate hotels, how to do all this stuff. And I'm in the process of building a hotel. And I had this wonderful professor advisor named Bob Chase. And I lay the plans on his desk and I go, "This is a room on the fifth floor, and it's next to the boiler pump, and we're very concerned that this room's going to be too. I need your advice. What do you think we ought to do this and the other thing?" And it was like free consultation. It was like free consulting. He was so great.
Wow.
And then sometimes he's like, "Let's take it to the class." And okay. And so because he was taught this class that I was in called hotel operations. There we are. We go in the classroom. You got all these students. They're all studying how to operate hotels. And he's like, "Joe, put your thing on the desk right here." And so I put it down. He goes, "Class, Joe's got a problem with his hotel. We got to help him."
Mm.
And it was very interesting. And I remember he said to me once, he goes, "This is so exciting. Do you know how many students I have? Do you know how many students I have building hotels right now?" I said, "I don't know. How many?" He goes, "You're it." He goes, "In all the time I've been teaching here, you're the only guy who's ever like building a hotel while he's studying. This is unbelievable." I was like, "Oh, this is great." So, anyways, so we continued. We built our portfolio hotels out to four properties, all under our own brand name, Tage Inns. It's the family name is Tagliente. I know you said Tagliente.
Yeah.
People say that sometimes, but we're Italian, so the G's soft. But
Yeah.
we called the company Tage. Wanted to call it Tagliente Hotel, but the sign guy goes, "If you can cut that name down, I can save you a bundle on the sign." So we from Tagliente down to Tage and then built four hotels, which was fantastic. And then we started to build some full service restaurants and things of that nature. And we really got to be this really very vertically integrated real estate, hospitality operations, restaurants and hotels with our own brand. And I was getting pitched all the time from developers. "I want to buy a flag. I want to buy a flag. I want to buy a flag." So I wanted to work on the franchise program too. And then we actually built started creating our own construction company in-house. So the last two hotels and the last three restaurants, we built all in-house.
Wow.
Okay, I had this wonderful general contractor, and I said, "Frank, you're on my payroll. Come on, you're working full time." And so we just banged it all out. And it was really great. And then what happened was in the late 90s, my dad got very sick. He had a stroke and it caused him to retire. And I have a younger sister and a younger brother. And that each our owners in the company, they were not as active as I was, but they had ownership. And then we were trying to figure out how to chart a path. And what happened was they just don't have the appetite for risk and debt and things of that nature that I have. And so we came to a meeting of the minds that perhaps it's better if we pivot the company into something a little bit less risky and more reliable. So that's when we started peering into the idea of pivoting from this full-blown hospitality company to just a family held real estate holding company. And so what I did is I went to Burger King Corporation. I knew that if I'm going to sell these Burger Kings, I have to deal with them because they have a right of first refusal. So I'll start with them.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to sell the Burger Kings. Do you want them? Yes, we want them, Joe. And we know that you love the real estate, so you can keep the real estate. We'll become your tenant.
Yeah.
Great. So we worked out that deal. And then I did the same thing with our portfolio hotels. A friend of mine from Cornell became this high-powered hotel broker. He said, Joe, I would love to do your deal. Let me take care of it for you. And I know you want to keep the real estate. So we're going to sell the hotels, but we're going to keep the ground leases, and you're the landlord. And I said, okay, great. And then with the restaurants, I did several build to suit. So we went from and added those to our portfolio, including we had this one hotel that we had bought out of foreclosure that sat on 9.5 acres of property, and it had a tennis court on it.
Wow.
And I said, no one's playing frickin' tennis. That's
Right.
going to be a restaurant site. So I called my friend Dan Chandler and I said, Dan, you want to put a Chili's there? And he was the development officer for Chili's. He said, of course I want to put a Chili's there. And I said, all right. I said, I get the site all laid out. I got all the entitlements. I just don't have the pad all set up. He's like, don't worry about it. You took care of the big stuff. I'm on the rest of it. So he built his own Chili's there, did a long-term triple net lease. And if you build something like that on land you own, that's free money.
Yeah.
You know, that is an infinite return. So that was really nice. But long and short, we went through all of these sale leasebacks. We went from having 450 employees down to 5, paid off all of our debt, and then evolved into this family held holding company, which we continue to have today. And I manage it as the sort of primary principal. We have this wonderful management company that helps us make sure that all the bills get paid and the rents get collected and the tenants are behaving themselves, and
Yeah.
and they handle all the day to day and give us wonderful reporting. And that's kind of like my story there, Caleb.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And something that you just touched on was talking about triple net leases. And, about how one of the questions that I have for you is how can triple net leases reduce risk and improve scalability?
Yeah,
Because as you probably know, at least in my experience, a
yeah.
lot of people don't understand triple net leases unless they've been in the business a while. So many people are like, I don't want a triple net lease. So maybe shine some light on how that reduces risk and increases that scalability.
Yes, absolutely. The thing is about triple net leases is there's a lot of good stuff to them, and then there's a lot of stuff that traditional real estate people are like, nah, that's not for me. Let's cover that. Nah, it's not for me. If you buy a triple net lease property that's already locked in with a long-term lease, the opportunities for doing value add
Yeah.
are very limited.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you're buying something that is like, I got a buddy of mine and we were chatting and he was telling me that he bought a dark Rite Aid.
Mm.
And in these days, this day and age of what's going on in the pharmacy
Yeah.
industry, these things are coming up. So he bought a dark Rite Aid and he got a very good cap rate on it, raised it, then got it all approved for a Raising Cane's,
Mhm.
and then leased it to Raising Cane's.
Yeah.
And they went in and I think he laid the utilities, but Raising Cane's went in and they built their own store. And then he turned around and he flipped it and then he sold it. They sold it as a Raising Cane's. So, excuse me, he did very well there. And if you can track down some triple net deals like that, those are real opportunities. That's obviously a typical value add play. But for a lot of people, they invest in triple net leases. They are it's like we'll say a mom and pop couple who own 50 or 60 apartments that they've been running for years. The husband maybe is a handyman and he takes care of the properties, and the wife will do all the leasing, and they have a nice relationship with all their tenants, and they do that for 30 years, and they get to be about 65 or 70, and like, we don't want to do this anymore. So let's sell these, and all the debt's paid off,
Yeah.
and all the depreciation's been squeezed out. So they sell it and they 1031 and they want to do a 1031 exchange into something that's low headaches, low risk. It's
Yeah.
just cash flow. And so that's what they do. And that's a great investment for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's more
but
passive income than the day-to-day activities and
right.
headaches and all of that.
That's right. That's exactly right. Now, the thing is for us is we for us it was a we didn't do that. What we did is we created our own
Right.
properties,
Yeah.
and then when the family decided to pivot its strategy, that was a mechanism that came into play. And I got to be honest with you, I got to give my father credit for that because he just a week before he had his stroke, we were out on my boat in Gloucester Harbor in Gloucester, Mass, fishing.
Yeah.
And he happened to say something. I'm a father and a grandfather, and I know now that when I say things, my children listen to me. And so he happened to fart out this idea. Sorry, I don't mean to use the word, but anyways, if you ever got tired of running the business, you always just sell it, keep the real estate, and rent it, and rent the property. He just kind of. I had a sandwich the other day. It was really good. That kind of that's how casually he mentioned it. But I was listening. I was like, I'm going to put that in the back of my head, and then sure enough, there it was.
Yeah.
Five years later, we were doing these structured sale-leaseback transactions. And so for us, it was a perfect mechanism to transition into. Now, and so my whole thing here is as I'm talking to people about franchising, I bring into play the idea of owning real estate underneath the brick and mortar franchises that they may own so they can create
Yeah.
long lasting wealth,
Yeah.
multi-generational wealth.
Yeah.
The whole idea, the name of the game is compounding. So if you can build a Dunkin' Donuts or a Midas muffler shop or an Arby's or whatever, pick your favorite brand and you can own the land underneath it and be your own landlord, then what happens is you're running your business, you're producing cash flow from the business, obviously, which is fantastic.
Yep.
You're paying yourself rent. But the thing that is also happening, and a lot of people don't think about this, is that, and depending on what market you're in, like we're in Boston, so the ground, the dirt underneath a lot of our properties has really appreciated at a tremendous rate.
Yeah. They don't make land anymore.
No, they don't, Caleb. And you and I have asked, and they said they're not making any.
Yeah.
But the thing is, God bless my father. He was so good when he finally figured out about buying real estate. He got really good at it, and and some of the real estate that he bought was just so remarkable. We own one of our Burger Kings that we are currently a landlord of is at the corner of D Street and Broadway in South Boston. South Boston, Ray Donovan, South Boston, that's South Boston. And people come to me all the time. They're like, how the hell did your dad get that done? It's expensive. It's difficult. Southeast crazy. The regulations, the political challenges, and so forth. And I said, my dad just did it. He
Yeah.
just did it. And that property is really something special.
Yeah.
And it's legacy quality assets.
Yeah. What is one mistake that franchisees make when they get into negotiating a lease, dealing with the real estate? What are some of the big mistakes that you've seen that maybe our listeners that are looking to get into this can avoid?
I think the thing that you really got to do is, when I'm advising people who are making their first investment into a franchise, particularly people who don't have experience in business, maybe they were a middle manager, some company somewhere else, or they were an attorney, or they did something else, and I find people who they owned another kind of business and then they sold it. Now they're sitting on all this capital and they go, I want to invest in franchises now. I still want to operate a business, but I want something, I want a playbook. I don't want to have to go through all that entrepreneurial. There's entrepreneurial angst when you buy a franchise. It's not as much as if you're starting your own like brand new software company.
Right.
Okay. So there's this gentleman I was chatting with, and he started from scratch this software company that did payments and things of that nature with two partners. They did very well. He sold it. And then he said to me, I'm thinking about buying a franchise. And I said, geez, that's a great transition. You're sitting on a pile of cash and so forth. He didn't do it. He ended up investing in apartments, but he had a good mind. He would have been great if he didn't decide, because he knew numbers. He knew how to model things. He knew how to understand it. And some of the franchises that I had told him about, like he got the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, which is the thing that you absolutely have to read.
Yep.
He studied it. He analyzed the various numbers in the financials and so forth. So he got a full understanding of the sort of financial anatomy of a franchise investment. When franchisees fail, it's because they get all caught up in the euphoria of I'm buying this franchise, which is great. It's great that you're passionate and you're excited, but you got to take the time to do the mental work, meaning you sit down, you got to get the franchise disclosure document. You got to really run the numbers. Hire a great CPA, hire a great attorney. If you know somebody who's great with numbers, have them help you. But most importantly, talk to other franchisees who are currently running the brand. If you don't do any other due diligence other than that, then just do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they will tell you, this is what's great about owning this kind of franchise. This is what sucks. This is what your day-to-day looks like. This is how you do local store marketing. Because how much should my rent be? Oh, your rent shouldn't be any more than this, and your labor should be this, your food cost shouldn't be this.
Yeah.
And so to answer specifically your question, they don't know the numbers.
Yeah.
And then they get way out over their skis and like, what do I do now? And you got to get this thing wrangled in.
Yeah, absolutely. As we start to wrap up, I am really curious. I am actually a New England boy myself, but I didn't live there very long. So I love that area very much. So I'm curious to see how retail and hospitality, restaurants, how things have morphed and how things have changed over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I'm finding now is the evolution that I'm curious of and fascinated of is the evolution of retail from the mall, the big indoor mall that we used to all, when we were kids, we would go see and Christmas time shop at, and how that thing is dying off, which
Mhm.
is a shame. But what's being introduced now are these phenomenal live, work, play centers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are some tremendous developers in this area who are doing these things, and they're outdoors and they have great restaurants and really well thought of shops that are complementary, supermarkets,
Yeah.
and then they have these beautiful places to live. If you want to live in an apartment, a high-end apartment, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like right here, I'm speaking to you from my office in Danvers, Massachusetts, but near me is a place called Market Street in Lynnfield, Mass, which is gorgeous. And down in Somerville, the Somerville, Mass community, I'm clearly very knowledgeable of. This company, Federal Realty Investment Trust, has built this development called Assembly Row,
Mm.
which is just like amazing. It's so cool. And they bought basically a place that was kind of like run down, and they've built these beautiful apartment buildings and office towers and great retail and all these great restaurants. And if you go there on a weekend, you can't even find a place to park because it's got a vibe to it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
That's awesome. It's fun to see the creativity and repurposing of buildings like that and properties like that.
Yeah.
Joe, where can people find you? If they need some advice, where do they find you?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. And Caleb, you're going to have my name spelled in the description
Yes,
here,
I
right?
will.
Okay, yeah. Because if I have to spell it out we'll be here for another 10 minutes. And so look me up on LinkedIn and then DM me if you'd like to chat or you're interested in franchising. I have a newsletter called the Franchise Playbook. You want to subscribe for that. It comes out every Friday morning. And in that I talk about some of my own experiences in franchising or things that I'm observations that I'm making in the market. And so I try to make it I'm trying to produce useful content that people will teach people, but will provoke thought and interest.
Awesome. Thanks again for sharing your story. So glad to have you on as a guest.
Yeah.
I look forward to staying connected.
Great, Caleb. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Have a great
Okay.
one.
You too now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If today's episode gave you valuable commercial real estate insights, subscribe, rate, and share it. Connect with me and the David Commercial Real Estate team through the show notes. Remember, real estate is more than buildings. It's about building community. See you next time.